Welcome everyone to the December Smart Money Town Hall. We're going to get started here, and I am going to share my screen. Here's our agenda for this morning. We're going to start out with our personal introductions, and usually I keep these to a minute or two, but we're kind of lightly attended due to it being the end of the year. So everyone take as much time as you want to talk about who you are, what you do, what you're interested in, anything you're interested in learning about here, anything that you're particularly wanting to understand, know, or be curious about. And then I'll get into our economic update, which is about 15 minutes. And after that, we'll have plenty of time for a discussion. I really love the discussions at these because almost everyone who is here, everyone's from different industries. And so it's really interesting to see people's insights from different walks of life, different industries, their different perspectives on that. And then I usually wrap up with a Smart Money Minute, which is where we talk about our financial education. And today we're going to talk about volatility because that's been a major theme in the stock market. How volatility affects our economy, I think, is actually a very interesting discussion. So that's our agenda for today. And let's start out with our personal introductions. I'm going to stop our screen share. And I'm just going to kind of go in the order I see everyone on the screen because we are kind of lightly attended. Christy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, all. I am Christy Woolard. I am a farmer's insurance agent. I am currently working in my bed because I have 2 children at home with me. Yay. Usually I have Grammy helping and my little man is at school, but right now we just got tested because my daughter has a cold, trying to keep Grammy well, all that fun stuff. So you will see I'll be trying to keep my kids out for the few minutes that I'm on the call, and then I have to jump in another one. But all things insurance, as far as I just love to be a resource and help any way I can, take that kind of pain point off people's plate a lot of times, because most people don't really want to deal with their insurance or have to know much about it. So at least if they have an agent they can trust, they know they're going to be okay no matter what. Grew up in Kansas City, have been out in Colorado for about 20 years. I love all things outside as long as it's fairly warm. So the sun keeps me happy out here because it's usually pretty warm. And I say that I keep a dog to remind me that snow is okay because they love it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Christy.
Good to see everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Daryl, would you like to go next?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Meyer. I live up in Erie, Colorado with my partner. I am in the wellness industry. I do network marketing, multi-level marketing, and I've done that since 2012, full-time since 2015. Especially with what's going on right now this year, a lot of people are looking for ways to stay healthy and make home, and that is what I help them do, stay healthy and make money from home. I have a 13-year-old dog. I have 2 kids, 3 grandchildren, and getting old very fast. So my goal in life is to die healthy.
Awesome. I like that. Thank you, Daryl. Welcome. And Seema, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yep. So I'm Seema Bott. I'm out in Denver in the renamed Stapleton Central Park area, which is funny because I used to live in New York City before I moved out here. So it seemed like the worlds collided. But I'm a sales and leadership coach, and I help salespeople increase their business, be better with their schedule and time, and then also motivate them. And actually, Christy, we work with a lot of farmers agents across the nation. So it's great to see a farmer's person. Yay. And I have a blind cat that I adopted, Scooter. She's really cute. And Oscar is my boyfriend and my dog. And he's a handful. He loves the snow. Oh my goodness. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Seema. And Camille, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Camille Parker, and I am a book midwife. I guide authors through the book journey, self-publishing and getting their book out and launched into the world. So basically what I do is I manage their book project. So anytime somebody has written a book, and let's say you have it written, but you don't know what to do with it, you have no idea how to publish it, get it out into the world. So what I do is do the backroom stuff, getting you up onto Amazon, helping you get all of your accounts opened up and so on. And the biggest thing that I do, along with like what Christy said, education. People do not understand the publishing industry at all, as I'm learning, as I'm going through this process. And they don't understand that self-publishing, a lot of companies and publishing houses that are called subsidy publishers, they own the distribution rights to your book, where all we do at My Word Publishing is we help you get your book out into the world by you becoming your publisher. And setting you up as a publisher is incredibly easy. And I help you get your category set up and so on. So it's just, we help with every type of book, every genre, self-help, memoir, business, tons of fiction genres, children's books, young adult books, anything you have that you want to write into the world, I can help you with that. So, and I'm here in Denver too. So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you. A note on what Camille does. When I was in my previous life, when I owned an acupuncture massage clinic, I was actually starting to write a nonfiction book about alternative medicine and health and wellness. And so I actually looked into what it was like to publish a book. And Camille is absolutely right. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Camille, but maybe 15 or 20 years ago, the realm of self-publishing was for people who couldn't get their books published any other way.
Yes, that's correct.
And,
Yep,
and nowadays,
absolutely.
self-publishing is great because when you're trying to publish a book through a big publisher, they kind of help you get your book into, say, Barnes and Noble, but you have to do a lot of work and a lot of marketing and use a lot of your own money. So why don't you just
Yes.
self-publish and keep all of the rights to your book too? So I think self-publishing is really really changing the industry because you can publish on Amazon.
It's changing. Well, in the type of publishing that is booming. And traditional publishing houses, you're right, they don't do marketing like they used to, and unless you're known, they don't take a chance on you. They really don't. So unless you're famous in some way, celebrity, politician, whatever, you're much less likely to get your book out there from a traditional publishing house. So,
yeah,
there you go.
And everyone here has good things to say about their industry and life. I mean, everyone's got really interesting things to say. And so I think self-publishing is a really cool option if anyone has kind of the bent that they have something they want the world to know. So, well, let me introduce myself. I'm Melissa Timberman. I work with Five Rings Financial, and I help people feel good about their financial path. I can help you protect your money from market losses. I can help you grow your money in a tax-free space that has incredible benefits once you are retirement age. And the whole time, just like Christy, I help you protect your assets along the way so that the first major medical event, major negative life event doesn't actually derail those plans. You always want to build your financial house on a really solid foundation of protecting what you have instead of a house of sand that's going to crumble at the first sign of something going wrong. So that is what I help people do. I help people get excited about that. And thank you all for being here. I get excited about talking about the economy and money and politics and where things are going. So we are going to stay away from politics and religion because it's the polite thing to do in society today. Thanks, Daryl. So we are going to stay away from politics and religion, but part of what we do here is I want to open up a space for some free networking. And so please feel free to back channel each other, get each other's information. Please share your personal information in the chat. And so everyone can follow up with each other as well if you're interested in what someone else does here. And of course, I invited you all here because I think you're all incredibly valuable and good at your jobs, and I want you to get to know other people. So feel free to share, back channel, chat with each other, put anything you're interested in, any questions throughout our economic update, please share those in the chat. And I am going to keep going with our economic update this morning. So thank you all for sharing what you do. And when we look at the economy, some people have different ideas about what the economy means. And traditionally, there are really 5 economic measures that we look at. There's quite a few. There's quite a few measures of the economy, and so we could spend all day talking about this, but let's not do that. Let's focus where we really need to focus. So we look at employment, we look at the unemployment rate, as well as how much people are making in earnings. When we look at housing and real estate, there are 10,000 measures of what we can look at, but one really basic measure that indicates how the economy is doing and how confidence in the economy is looking at housing starts. Then we look at inflation. Inflation is a great measure of how stable things are. We also look at spending. How much are people spending in the economy? We all need to save for our futures. I think everyone knows that Social Security is not going to do it for us. So we all need to save, but spending, how much are people able to put back into the economy? That's really important. And the last measure of economy is the confidence. What confidence do people have in how the economy is doing now and their predictions of how the economy is doing in the future? So those are the 5 things that we're going to go through today. And our first one is looking at the unemployment rate. So the chart on the left, I'm enjoying showing how the unemployment rate has improved since the beginning of the year. What we really want to look at is we want an unemployment rate of between 3 and 4%. Higher than that means too many people are unemployed, too many households are negatively affected. Lower than that, it actually means that there aren't enough people for employers to hire. So a really low unemployment is actually bad for the economy, and it prevents companies from being able to expand. So 3 to 4% is just perfect for unemployment. We're quite a bit higher than that. And as you'll notice on this first slide, this is where I start color coding things. It's a really easy way to kind of see how things are going. So we've seen an 8% improvement in unemployment since April, and that's wonderful. So that gets a green, that's an A. The unemployment rate, however, is still much higher than it ought to be at 6.7%. So that's a red. That is not good. But when we look at the bad unemployment rate, don't be upset, because the chart on the right shows us that their unemployment just goes in waves with how the economy is doing. This spike is the worst we've seen since the Great Depression, but it is absolutely normal to have fluctuations in the unemployment rate. It's not going to stay between 3 and 4% all the time forever. So unemployment is improving. It's still much higher than we want and need it to be, but it is not abnormal or uncommon. So moving on to our next measure of economic, the state of the economy, is how many actual jobs we've added and lost. Now, November numbers say that we've added about 250,000 jobs over the last month. That seems like a lot, but this time last year, there are still over 9 million fewer people employed at this point. And so that we are seeing the rate at which jobs are added and lost. We are seeing our recovery with this unemployment going down. We are seeing our recovery slow down. And so it might take us longer than we think to really get back to pre-pandemic levels. And we are seeing changes in which services and jobs are seeing improvement and not. So overall, we are still adding jobs, which is good. It gets that blue rating. It's not a green, it's not a red, it's in the middle. So this is decent. We are not hurting there. We are still hurting compared to where we were last year. So we've got a ways to go. Economic recovery is kind of slowing down, which is not something we super want to see. But we're moving in the right direction. I'm an eternal optimist, which may not make me the best person to talk about an economic update, because just like the news media, I think there's a lot more money when you can predict dire doom and gloom. So forgive me for my optimism, I suppose I should say. Another measure of employment, which is actually really important, is hourly earnings. This is how much people are making per week. And so it doesn't matter if you just have a job or not. We all know unemployment is one thing, but what about underemployment? People who are in the gig economy, people whose hours are cut, people who are working fewer than 30 hours a week and don't automatically earn the protection of an employer who has to provide health insurance to them. underemployment is actually not a great thing in the economy. So when we look at hourly earnings, we're kind of seeing how much money people are actually bringing home. Now, this chart is super interesting. In April, we saw an almost 5% increase in hourly earnings. Does anyone know why? Could anyone think of why that is? Why would we see an increase in earnings when everyone's, feel free to unmute yourself and contribute. Why would earnings increase by almost 5% back in April?
Stimulus.
Oh, that's a really, yeah, I didn't think of that. That's not the reason, but that's a really good one. I like that. Anyone else? Hint, this is the most unequal economic crisis we have ever seen. It has affected different industries differently. Back in 2008, and I'm taking my time on this because we do have more time today. Back in 2008, all sectors of the economy were affected equally. Everyone kind of got hit at the same time. All industries got hit at the same time. So this economic crisis back in April, it's service workers, it's lower paid workers, it's gig economy workers. Those guys lost their jobs, guys and gals. People in the lower paid sectors of society lost their jobs, which made it look like people were earning more money, but it's only that higher paid workers were the ones who kept their jobs. So not only do service workers get paid less, but they also lost their jobs at higher rates. So this 4.7% doesn't mean that people were making more money. It actually just shows you how unequal this economic crisis is affecting people. So after that, we saw a small correction where earnings went down as jobs were added, as people pivoted. Who likes that word anymore? It's making me crazy. I don't know. If I never hear the word pivot ever again, I'm going to be super thrilled, right?
A new normal.
Yes, the new normal, unprecedented.
We never had a normal.
I'm sorry, Camille?
I said we never had a normal. That's the thing. There's no such thing as normal.
I like that. That's probably the best thing I've heard in one of these discussions. That's great. There is no normal. It's always fluctuating and changing. You stagnate and you die. So we saw a few corrections to hourly earnings in May and June. And this month, and ever since through the summer and the fall, earnings have stayed roughly the same. Sometimes we see upticks and people are working more hours per week, so they're bringing home more. And it stayed pretty stable, which is not really what we want to see. We generally want to see that earnings are keeping up with inflation. So again, this gets a grade of probably a B. It's that nice blue. It's not green. It's not red. We'll take it, right? Next thing we're going to look at is real estate. I think real estate is awesome. It's one of the best ways to look at the local economy. How's your local economy doing? You want to see how real estate is doing. Are houses moving? Are people offering more for homes than sellers are asking? So when we look at housing starts, this is the number of residential units that begin actual construction. There are numbers for how many residential units are getting permits. There's numbers for how many residential units are getting sold. But housing starts, I think, is a really good measure because that indicates confidence. When you have a lot of housing starts, it means that people in the construction and real estate industries think this is a safe bet. The economy is moving in the right direction. I'm going to make money on these residential units. So that's why I pick this measure. And we are seeing not much growth. This chart shows housing starts from about 2011 onward. And so we see a general upward trend. With how many units are beginning construction. So we kind of are on track, except for the dips in early and mid 2020. We are up 1.2% from last month, which again, growth is good. This is another measure, just like unemployment, where we are seeing the rate of improvement decrease. So our economic recovery is still going, but it's slowing down. And so it will take us a while to recover from this pandemic. That's what that 1.2% means. If no questions, moving on. Inflation is my favorite measure in these economic updates right now because it's the one that's consistently green. We want to see an inflation amount always between 0 and 2%. When we see that level of inflation, that means that can mean that cost of living is not going up higher than earnings. So when we see earnings go up by 0.3%, we're not thrilled about that, right? But that does mean that earnings are slightly, I mean, by a teeny tiny minuscule amount, are outpacing inflation. And so that is what we want to see. These inflation numbers look great. The Federal Reserve funds rate, that 0.25%, that's what mortgage funds are, that's what mortgage rates are based on. That's what government loans, bonds, treasury bonds, that kind of thing, that 0.25% at the bottom. A lot of interest rates in the country depend on that rate. The Federal Reserve is keeping that rate low right now to help stimulate the economy and keep inflation at the right amount. If this rate stays the same for too long, then it means that the economy is stagnating. And this hasn't changed since the beginning of the pandemic.
Good question. So with the Fed fund rate, when you say you don't want it to go too long, obviously we're in an anomalous situation right now. Mm-hmm. So are they taking that into consideration before they determine whether they're going to bump it to 0.5 or whatever?
Absolutely. The Fed wants to see the economy stabilize before they start raising rates again. They want to see hourly earnings go up. They want to see unemployment go down, probably below 5% or so. They are keeping it low on purpose. Hey, Christy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm recording this, and so I'll send you the recording. Maybe you can catch up on anything you're interested in.
Awesome.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. You guys all take care. Thank you.
Stay safe. Hope you guys are well.
Thank you.
So yeah, the Fed rate, we want to see that low. If it's too low for too long, it means the economy is too depressed, but there's a lot of things that depend. There's a lot of factors that are at play before they decide to raise that rate. If they raise it too soon, then all of those hardest hit households that are working in the service sector or not working at present, those households are going to be hit even harder. So they want to keep that low. They will keep it low.
Well, with the new administration coming in too, that's going to change some of the numbers at some point, probably. So
absolutely.
I mean, because right now it's just, people are in a very much a limbo situation right now. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this one's kind of my favorite slide of the economic update because it's always the consistently most positive one, which is what we want to see. So yeah, that's a really good comment on the Fed rate. Next, let's look at spending. And this one actually, this one should be my favorite. How do I go back here? I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Actually, I'm not. I don't know how to go back on these on the screen share slides, but spending is great. Q1 was anemic. Q2, we went down by our GDP is how much, the gross domestic product of how much we are producing in terms of money, services, retail, etc. And that went down by about 31% over the second quarter, which is the spring and summer. And it went up, and it's gone up by about 33%. And that's a quarterly figure, so it really doesn't change between months. So anyway, that's a happy slide too. So our next slide, we're talking about spending and how much are consumers actually spending. And we look at two things here. One, we look at retail. When you think of spending, it's really retail you think of, right? I mean, we're all going to Target, we're all going to the grocery store, and that's all retail. Durable goods is a really good thing to look at because, again, when we look at long-term consumer confidence, durable goods is sales of automobiles, home appliances, things that are going to last quite some time. And so if you're not sure if you're going to be employed next month, you don't buy durable goods. You're not going to trade in your car if you don't know what your financial situation is going to look like. So durable goods is a really good measure of the economy. Durable goods are up a tiny tick, which again is good. We want it to be up a little more than that. Retail sales were down, which is unusual because what's the biggest shopping day of the year? Black Friday. We are seeing, I don't know if you guys remember, about 5-10 years ago, there was just this frenzy about Black Friday spending, right? People were getting trampled, and there were riots and fistfights, and grandma was going to Walmart with a shiv to make sure she got an Xbox 360 for Timmy.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so now companies are spreading out Black Friday spending. They're having sales that last all weekend. They're doing online offers, that kind of thing. So we are seeing the Black Friday frenzy kind of being spread over Thanksgiving week, the following week, and throughout the Christmas season, which I was scared of grandma with her shiv. So I'm thrilled that that companies have changed the way they are offering those sales. It's still a little disappointing to see retail sales go down month over month. And there are, I listen to NPR, I listen to different economic outlets, and it was very funny because some outlets were saying, we're spending more than ever this holiday season, it's been amazing. And that's true. This number on the left, $546 billion in retail sales. And remember, people, this is in 1 month. This is in 1 month that people are spending that much. So it's a phenomenal number that we're looking at. But when we actually look at how retail sales are doing compared to previous months, compared to previous years, it's not really where we want to be to see a thriving economy. So this is no bueno, so we're going to move on. I wonder if one facet of optimism is just ignoring the things you don't like and pressing forward with the things you do. As long as you're not jumping off a cliff with the other lemmings, I'm sure it's okay, right? We
do tend to downplay the bad as the optimist. I'm an optimist too, so we don't even downplay it a little bit. So
yeah. So this is this is a very, very interesting slide, because when we look at confidence as a major player in how the economy is doing, it kind of tells you that a lot of how our economy is psychological. And I find it very interesting that they can quantify the psychological aspect of how an economy is doing. Far more intelligent people than I are involved in creating these measures, and I find it just absolutely fascinating. Most people have heard of the Consumer Confidence Score. You hear it now and again, but I actually really like looking at the Leading Economic Index, the LEI. It's a measure that was created in 2016. So it's a little newer than the Consumer Confidence Score, which, as you can see, was created in 1985. They both index at 100. They both start out with an index at 100. And the Leading Economic Index is just a little more complicated. It involves more measures of what people are doing. So the Consumer Confidence Score is based on consumer surveys every single month. And I'm a little upset. There's only 330 million people in America, and I've never been called by the Consumer Confidence Survey to ask how my household has been doing this last month. So I'm a little bent out of shape about that. But the Consumer Confidence Score is based on household surveys. The Leading Economic Index is based more on numbers. It includes employment numbers. It includes real estate numbers with far more complicated aspects than just housing starts. So the Leading Economic Index is a more concrete measure and a more complicated measure of consumer confidence. So the LEI, the Leading Economic Index, has gone up slightly every month. And so even if people are saying, I don't feel confident about my ability to have a job, my household has decreased income over this year, that is not shown in how people are spending their money and how people are moving from home to home and how people are actually acting. So the LEI, I think, is a very interesting measure, and it's upticked a bit more again. The Consumer Confidence Score has gone down for November numbers and December numbers. And what does that correlate with? The uptick in COVID numbers. Again, I haven't really directly talked about COVID, but a lot of ups and downs we're seeing directly correlate with how hospitalizations are going, how many people are being diagnosed across the country, as well as the pattern and waves of on and off again shutdowns and restrictions in business. So consumer confidence score is down quite a bit in October. I reported on the October number here, this bottom right, September to October. I reported on the October numbers last month, but since we are so late in the month, I've gotten the November and December numbers. And so we have decreased from 101 to 89 from the last Smart Money Town Hall to this Smart Money Town Hall. That's a huge decrease. We can't just call it seasonal. Things are getting colder, things are getting darker, we're all depressed, we can't go visit anyone for the holidays. It's really not about that. This is really much more tied to the COVID numbers than anything. Now, the good point about that is that when the COVID numbers get better, we see a huge uptick. We see a huge uptick in the consumer confidence score. So this consumer confidence score, when it goes up and down so much, that's what we call volatility. And that's what we're going to talk about in our Smart Money Minute today. Stock market performance, we are at another all-time high. Last Friday, we hit a high of 3,700 points in the S&P 500. But as we can see, there's a lot of upticks and downticks here. It's not just a few upticks and downticks with a general upward trend. It's like this, and then it goes down, and then it goes up. And so that extreme volatility indicates poor consumer confidence, poor economic confidence. And it does negatively affect us personally in our finances. So here's where we bring it all together. Here's where we look at all of our grading. And there are quite a few more red ticks than we would like to see. As I said, my favorite, inflation, consistently in the green. We're going to go with that for an overall grade of a B- for this month. It's nothing personal, month of December. I'm sure you'll get better. So, any questions? Let's start our discussion. I really like knowing what you all see. Daryl, your industry, you're seeing a lot of people come into your industry because they lack confidence or income or whatever. Seema, you get to talk with, you're a coach, so you get to talk with a lot of people across a lot of different industries. And same with you, Camille, in the book publishing industry. So I'd love to hear what everyone has to say, what you've been seeing in the economy. Where do you think things are going?
I can tell you in book publishing, it's ironic that the head of my publishing, Polly, made a comment last month and said, look to December and January as being very big months, very heavily, because she said, typically for whatever strange reason, because I do think it's a little bit strange, that December and January really are big publishing months for people coming into, starting their projects and so on. I understand January, not so much December. December typically is, in every industry I've ever worked in, has always been a slowdown month because people are ending their year, trying to, close stuff down. A lot of people take vacations, all that kind of stuff. And, but no, in publishing, and I can absolutely tell you that I won't say overwhelmed, but yeah, it's been a crazy last month, and January looks to be the same. I'm hearing from the industry itself that 2021 is supposed to just be a booming year for publishing in general, but especially self-publishing, because people are starting to recognize that they don't need to go to larger houses that aren't going to help them with their marketing, aren't going to help them, gain any of their royalties, because they're only paid a certain percentage, where you own everything in self-publishing. So anyway, there you go.
Cool. Seema, Daryl?
I work with a lot of mortgage brokers and realtors. But on the mortgage side, they're having the time of their lives right now. And a lot of my LOs, they're really high performing ones, but they're having their biggest months right now. And January looks pretty good. I work with people all across the US. So in Colorado, like on the real estate front, pretty steady, but places like Pennsylvania and New Mexico, very different story. It seems like though overall the housing industry, it's not enough housing in the market. So there's more buyers than sellers.
Right.
And yeah, that's the main two industries that I work predominantly with. And then I have some random other industries that are dependent on consumers in like retail, restaurant, that kind of industry. So obviously they're having to pivot. Your favorite word, Melissa. But they're definitely seeing that, and just it keeps on coming. So and I'm like, I coach someone in Israel and other countries too. So depending also on what they're allowed to do has, changed, and has they've had to think outside the box to continue their growth.
Cool.
That's great.
I prefer the word pivot to unprecedented. That word I cannot stand that word unprecedented.
Well said, yes.
I'll say. I think, I think our economy is definitely in a morph right now. I mean, we are changing. In my industry, the multi-level marketing industry, network marketing, I've seen a huge awareness happening that people have found that they are very vulnerable with the systems that they've been working under. Go to school, get an education, get a good job, and you're going to be able to retire someday. That isn't the case. And I think it has made so many more people aware that they have more control over their financial stability and their income opportunities than they did previous to that. I also believe that it's placing millions of more people in a position that's going to be more attractive for a home-based side business or side gig, because they are, a lot of companies, they're saying we're not coming back into the office. You guys are going to work from home from now on, which means that they have that opportunity. So our industry is just absolutely exploding. I've doubled my distributor base in 1 month alone, just because so many people were now moving in this direction. And I think it's good. I think it's a great opportunity for us. And it's just been a year of awareness for so many people that they do have more control over their future income, and more importantly, their stability with that income.
That's great. It's really great.
I think that's really cool, and it makes a lot of sense, because I think our idea of what's professional, I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, but I think our idea of what's professional has maybe changed. We all know that when you have little kids at home, they sometimes need your attention. Or we've all seen that when the cat or the dog gets in the frame, people are like, oh, come show me, come show me. Like, Oscar wasn't even in the room. And I'm like, Seema, show us Oscar.
I know. I just see him too.
And so I think that's going to be more attractive to people. And then a lot of people just don't have homes available to set up for home offices. And so you're seeing people who are sitting in their beds, in their bedrooms, in their living rooms with the kids' toys behind them. And so I think what we are looking at is people's actions have to be professional, not necessarily their entire environment. And I think that's going to be super attractive to people who want that side business.
Well, I think it helps increase their authenticity as well, or just being real life people. I mean, yes, I'll have my dog come over and stare at me like I'm ready for a walk and I'm on a call, and I just have to ignore him. But and I think it also is doing a lot to increase their overall happiness and morale as well, when they do have more control over those things. So yeah. I think one of the industries that probably second quarter in 2021, I think we're going to see a real increase in shared, like the co-solve places where you have a shared office space. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For those people that can't handle the kids running around, or the dogs, or the whatever's happening. I think they're going to see it. They're going to need that special place for 3 times a week. I think we're going to see real increase in that as well.
I agree with you. Yeah, but I have a feeling that a lot of real estate, commercial real estate, is going to be converted into that. That a lot of people, like what you were saying earlier, Daryl, where a lot of people are not going back to the office in general. Like companies are saying, shutting down their offices completely. And by doing so, it's like you've got all of this office space and a lot of open office space. And I don't know if any of you've been to any of like the WeWork kind of spaces and stuff, that they do have a lot of, the wide open areas where you can have, cubicles kind of thing, or you can be in an office. So, and you have that opportunity. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be a huge thing for those who can't have an office set up at home. So.
Right. I also think commercial real estate, especially in Colorado, there will be a lot of companies that send their employees home and shut down. But with the increase in the marijuana industry in Colorado as well, I think that those spaces are going to be, just snatched right up by the growers to be able to have the indoor. So I don't think commercial real estate is going to be impacted. In fact, I expect it to grow in 2021.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I loved what you were saying, Seema, about the real estate industry too. Again, we're just seeing this hugely unequal effect on different industries. And I think, Seema, you're probably in a position to see that most of all, because you see the mortgage brokers and the realtors who are going gangbusters. My husband is in the tech industry, and his company was acquired in August. Almost everyone was laid off in September. I'm sorry, half the company was laid off in September, and who hires in Q4? No one. Almost half the company was laid off, and then another quarter of the company has left because morale is so low. But it's because the tech industry is doing so amazingly well this year because of the pandemic, that the tech industry is hiring like gangbusters. And so real estate, tech, and then again, Seema, you work with service industries, retailers, and restaurants, and they're terribly hard hit right now.
I also think we can expect to see, similar to what happened in 2008 with the real estate bust there, that if you had a job where you were, and this is going to be the tech industry, I think it's going to be all industries except for Amazon. If you were worth or being paid $80,000 in 2019, in 2021, that $80,000, you're now going to get paid $55,000, because there's going to be so many more available people in the unemployment market that they're going to start taking advantage of paying less for that. That's one of the things I saw happen pretty significant in 2008, and it took, until probably 2016 for that to improve to the point where people, were making a better income. So
yeah. I just saw a headline this morning, I think it was on the CPR news brief that I get every morning, and it said that both Fed and state minimum wage is going up in January 1. So just FYI, I have no idea how much it's going up to, but I don't know how much that's going to affect those who are working in, fast food, and especially I always think of fast food because that's sort of like always a kind of an indicator to me where the minimum wage hits, because typically most people start off in those places at minimum. So yeah, so I'll be really interested to see how that affects generally in Colorado. I do know a lot of companies they're paying above minimum wage for what they used to just pay minimum wage jobs for, because it's just been so uneven. And this is pre-COVID, obviously. COVID kind of throws everything out the window.
Yeah. Seattle actually instituted the $15 minimum wage a couple of years ago. And so they're going to be kind of like Colorado was our test case for the marijuana industry. Seattle's going to be our test case for the $15 minimum wage, and business is actually doing very well in Seattle, all kinds of businesses. It's not really affecting a lot of people negatively. But looking at hourly earnings, Daryl, is going to be a way to kind of look at what you were saying about how people are, and it's not just minimum wage, because you're not talking about service jobs, you're talking about the higher paying jobs that might now start to see deflation in earnings. So looking at hourly earnings is going to be a way to look at that, although of course hourly earnings is also affected by a decreasing unemployment rate. And so I also think, this is not always something I talk about, but I think that gender differences we're going to see the effect of gender differences. I don't know if I guess I'm here because I do read about these things, but another way in which this economic crisis is super unequal is what was the gender difference in 2008 when people got laid off back then? More men than women got laid off back then because they were higher paid. Employers saw, hey, we're feeling the pinch. We need to keep on our most productive, least expensive employees. And so a lot more men than women got laid off in '08. This crisis, because of the way this crisis happened, there needs to be more childcare. And so a lot more women were being laid off. There's a lot of class action lawsuits in the works on women being forced out of workplaces because they had to take too much time off because of their childcare situations. Or they just couldn't handle the stress of childcare and working with maybe a less than helpful partner.
Right.
So this economic crisis, we've seen droves of women leaving the workforce, and we know over time that when that happens, it actually results in worse outcomes for families.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So yeah, I think we're going to see the effects of that next year as we start seeing certain industries grow, maybe cannabis or changes in commercial real estate or retail, that kind of thing. So, well, speaking of things going.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think with people working from home too, people are going to start becoming more entrepreneurial again, because they're being forced to in 2020, but they're going to make that a permanent thing as opposed to having it just be a psychic. They're going to recognize that the payoff is better for them.
Yeah, just like with self-publishing, or like with Daryl, with what you do with with MLMs, and even SEMA, like you're helping train people to have more leadership and have more initiative and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go into the final portion of what we're talking about today. And this is our Smart Money Minute, which is the more financial education focused piece of our morning. And the theme I've been seeing for the last several months is volatility. And so when we talk about volatility, it's not that things are good or bad. It's simply that things are changing quite often. And so when we look at our personal finances, how does volatility affect our personal finances? Does volatility in the economy affect our personal finances? I mean, there's only 3 of us here, but who of us has seen volatility really affect our personal finances? Probably not, right? It doesn't seem like it affects us a lot, but it does affect us a lot on a long-term level. And so when we talk about volatility, when we looked at that stock market graph, things went really down in April, and then they came up and they actually got better. And volatility doesn't just look like this, because that's a very normal sort of change when we look at the stock market, when we look at the economy. But volatility more looks like there's lots of ups and downs. That's really what volatility looks like. Okay, so does it make sense that there's a difference between that kind of behavior and that kind of behavior? And the way it affects us personally, let me start over a teeny tiny bit here. But the way it affects us personally is maybe not as drastic as we think when we look at our daily budget. I mean, as long as you haven't lost your job, who cares if the stock market is doing this or this? But this is how it affects us. So most of us have money in the stock market. That's why we care. If you have a 401k, if you have something like that, then the stock market does affect us. And so a volatile market that goes down a lot and up a lot, that kind of thing, how it affects us is what happens when we have to make up for losses. So making up for losses, let's say this is what your 401k is doing, right? It's going up a lot, it's going down a lot. Every time it goes down, that's bad, right? But when it goes up like this, we think, oh, when you look at that, do you think, oh, this is great, the stock market is going up? Well, it doesn't matter how much it goes up, because if this is where you started out, even if this is better, you're still underwater. So when we look at growth, it really doesn't matter how much things have increased. It matters how much growth are you really seeing? Are you underwater or not? Because when you are underwater, all of this is bad. You're losing, right? But all of this, you're making up for losses. You are paying off your losses. This part, up until you get back here, this part is great. This is you making money. That is what we want to see. But even though this is all increase here, you are still making up for losses. And so what does that mean? Let's say you have $100,000 in your retirement savings. What happens when you lose 10%? How much money do you have? $90,000. Well, let's say you have a much better day the next day. Let's say you go up 10%. How much money do you have? $99,000. So when you look at your rate of return is zero, minus 10% plus 10%. Your 401k advisor, your TD Ameritrade, your personal advisor is going to say, well, you've made 0%, but you actually have less money in the bank. So when the stock market says, hey, we've gone up 15% in the last 10 months, I mean, which isn't true, I'm exaggerating, but when an advisor or a number tells you that you've gone up 15% in the stock market, your actual return is always going to be lower than that, because you always have to make up for losses. So when we look at the economy and whether the economy is doing really well or not, we see, oh, the economy is doing badly. That's really bad for me. But when we look at volatility, we're a little unsure, but it actually affects us negatively more than we think. Because it's not how much the economy is going down, it's not how bad things are, it's how often things are going up and down that affects our economic potential and our wealth accumulation. So volatility has an extraordinarily negative effect on us, even when on the surface, it kind of just seems like, oh, we're just unsure of where things are going. No, in your personal finances, in your wealth accumulation, volatility is very nearly as bad as a bad economy. So that's something to be aware of. It's not something to be scared of. You can always have protection in place, and that's actually what I do. I honestly, and Camille knows this as well, but I honestly care about safety and about growth. So when we talk about the tortoise and the hare, the moral of the story is that slow and steady wins the race, right? Well, that's actually how people can retire. Earlier in the conversation, Daryl, you made a comment about people can't retire nowadays, and they can't when they're doing this in the stock market, because making up for losses affects our long-term wealth accumulation a lot more than most people think. But it is not inevitable. If you have money you can't afford to lose, you can put it in safe spaces where slow and steady will win the race. And so that is, frankly, that's my personal retirement plan. Slow and steady wins the race. And because I know how well it works, it's something I really care about, and I really want to get the word out. You know, you don't have to be unsure. You don't have to lose. You can build your retirement the way you want with what you have today, regardless of where you are financially in life. So that is my eternal message of optimism. And I hope it really lands well. I think with a new administration, with a new year, with a vaccine, with fewer shutdowns, I do think we are going to see the economy improve. And I would love to see more people see that improvement without ever fearing the losses or the volatility that we will always see. As several people have said today, none of this is unprecedented. All of this is going to happen again at some point. And so that message of hope and protection and optimism, that is something I really want people to understand. So, any final comments? Thanks for your comment, Camille. This is a great discussion today, Melissa. Thanks so much. Thank you for your comment. Any final comments, any questions, anything anyone is interested in? Any final thoughts?
I'd like to just say thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed this today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thanks for being here, Seema. It's good to see you both.
I got to jump to call, but thanks again, guys.
It is right at
Thanks,
11.
Seema. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Seema. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It is right at 11, and so we will end there with hope and optimism for the new year in just a couple of days.
That makes me happy. Yay, yay.
Yes.
Okay. You guys have a great new year, okay? I'll
Happy
talk
New
to you
Year.
soon.
Well,
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
all right. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Daryl. Good to see you. I'm glad you made it.
I appreciate it.
Take care.
You have a safe new year as well.
Take care. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.